Thank you so much there. So I'll just share with you just one slide to share some of the thinking I have about maybe final thoughts for this. So there's just a couple of things I get on the personal level. I get really excited about, like things that's coming up and things. Some of my prediction for 2020. The first one is really about cost. I think the driving factor behind everything what's happening really just things are really expensive in there. So one of the big thing is I think just mailing drugs to your home. I actually think will become actually the biggest threat to CVS and Walgreens, probably even more so than Amazon, right? You can see there, we already begin to see trends of like different vertical services, people start chipping away at this. I think you're gonna see acceleration of this activity in this. And I actually think Walgreens and CVS, the thing that will kill them potentially is not so much Amazon, but just a bunch of services, people just shifting toward just, this is how you get your drugs. And the cost equation for that, it's just like, literally it's just like day and night different. There's really just no way you could actually have brick and mortar infrastructure to compete with that type of things. Then the next one we get really excited is, so over the past year, we spent a lot of time working with the pharmaceutical companies in there. We did a lot of consulting, just sharing insight with them. So what we call internally called the P3 strategy. So the idea is having this patient and the providers, the doctor, the nurses, and the pharmaceutical company having a more direct relationship. So right now they're fairly decoupled, but there's actually ways you can have more direct relationship still meeting all the regulatory requirements. And in fact, I think this relationship as it starts maturing will become a very big threat to the pharmacy benefit managers. So right now the PBMs in some sense are the ultimate middleman. They create a lot of increasing costs in this. And this is one of the driving the costs of these sorts of prescription drugs and so on. And then we think this will become a model that actually will shift the cost curve in a really big way in this. So again, our prediction in 2020, we're going to see a lot of these activities the big pharma has been thinking for, like planning. Now you're going to start seeing this actually start nudging on the market. But again, it will still take a while for them, of course, to impact. Another thing on the cost way is just, I think just a resource efficiency. If you think about a doctor, right? So yesterday you saw that slides like, this for a typical doctor, you might spend this much time actually caring a patient, but you see a whole bunch of time, just doing documentation on the EMR, calling. So we think, for example, when our partner like Scribe EMR, right? I think their model, it would be just like, it would just take off, right? Why would physicians spend all this time writing the documentation? It's much more cost effective to have people do it remotely. Now you free up the doctor to really treat the patient. We're going to see these type of trends will accelerate because these are the things that both decrease costs as well as to make doctors actually happier. Another big thing is where, this is something that we're really excited about, is I think the companies has less than 1,000 employees in there. I think they actually will be the main driver to the changes in healthcare. Now, of course, the Amazons, Walmarts, they get the news, right? Sooner they, like just sneeze, right? They're all over the news in there. But the reason is, I think these companies less than 1,000 employees, they will drive it. So here's why. Typically, when you sell to an enterprise that has, like tens of thousands of employees, they have the HR department, all these things. The typical HR department in terms of sales cycle is, right, even if you give them something very innovative in there, hopefully I'm not offending any HR people, but it doesn't make sense for them to change. Even if you go there and say, I could decrease your, this segment of healthcare insurance for your employee by 50%, they will not do it in general. Because if something goes wrong as any innovation goes, right, they could get fired. If they do nothing, they keep their job. Right? I mean, intrinsically, for big enterprises, they'll be really slow to change, even though you have all these great ideas. But when you have companies that has less than 1,000 employees, your HR tend to be often just your chief financial officer or someone assistant, and they just look at the costs in there, right? So they can make very fast changes to this. That's why we think is, even though Amazon and Walmart, they get the press coverage, it's actually people in the 1,000 employees, they're actually, those are the enterprise that will make rapid changes. So in fact, one of the model we see is, for example, if you look at these, there are a bunch of these sort of faith-based medical cost sharing model, right? That's actually it came out of the church's religious community, but those are taken out, right? These are huge organizations. So that's a model for actually decreasing costs. Actually, they're making a lot of entries in there. We think that will be the basis model for how these employer should think about their insurance. And then also things like yesterday, like Zenefit, one of the reasons we invited them to come is we think companies like Zenefit, people like Virgin Pulse, right? These are the huge, they are touching all these corporate HR and the healthcare side for all these enterprises across the board. These are the channel partner, they will actually drive these changes to these. So another area that I'm actually really, really excited, you probably know like I love these sort of gadgets and sensors, is just sort of, for example, over-the-counter home test. Right? For example, the picture I'm showing you here is a local company in there, right? You get this sort of device, $50, can, home, you could test your flu. Right? You could have the same thing, you could test for things like STD. There's a bunch of really interesting things. I mean, today when you do telemedicine, right, often the person can see you, they ask you a question in there, but you don't have the lab components. Right? We see a bunch of these companies actually making these labs so simple that you could actually just get the results from your home, and the cost is coming down in a really interesting way. Another class is there are no-touch sensors. A lot of them based on like Doppler radars and various things. We have like 2 exhibitors there. So we think this would be actually a very game changer because we've been doing wearable stuff for many, many years. Right? If you have to have the patient wear something, put something in there, it's a huge adoption barrier. But when you have something that's like no touch, it's passively, then you could get all sort of really interesting insight in there. So we're really excited about that. Then another trend is we see the number of speakers talk about. The idea is about instead of thinking, the patient as patients in there, really think of them as just customers. So this is probably one of the biggest things about the whole Amazon affect the healthcare, right? You really treat them as a customer rather than a patient. As soon as you have that mind change in this, and all sort of magic things happen. I think my hunch is the company, after this digital health revolution, the company that left standing will be people who quickest make that mind switch. And the company that will die were enterprises, which they just couldn't do this. And then, for example, within that, one of the areas that we see a lot of these were small activity, I think in 2020 was blown up. The whole idea, for example, if you take things like the diabetes industry, you have this continuous glucose monitoring device, which is really, really transformative. We think some of these devices could actually be applied to non-diabetic patients. The idea is you take these very interesting sensors as type of like biohacking, for wellness, and they're able to control your glucose level, not so much for diabetes, just control your overall health in there. There's a bunch of interesting activity that will be coming from the consumer in there. Then the final piece is, I think, is my hunch is right now you see there's almost a collision course between something that's very simple for the consumer from the patient perspective. People talk about the patient experience as well from the electronic medical record system. At the end of the day, right, EMRs control the workflow, the industry, right? Just like they control the thing. So I think there is a natural conflict between these two forces in there. I think what the middle ground will be, my hunch is starting in 2020, you're going to see EMRs to able to, the idea, instead of think about these traditional, there's EMR views of the patient. The way the patient you have is almost like a Facebook wall type thing. Here's a quick snapshot, right? Then this will be able to see these patients from the key insight about this patient, from the wearable, blood pressure cuff, weight, all these interesting things, a quick snapshot. I think this will make the physician much, much more effective in terms of handling the patient. And then, of course, you're adding the AI to actually help the physician to save their time, to just quickly zoom in on the relevant piece. Because realistically, would the physician look at all your blood pressure data over the last 3 months, 12 months? Realistically, no, they wouldn't. But you want the AI to be able to quickly enhance them so they could drill down on the most relevant piece in there. Again, so these are a couple of things, my prediction on what will happen a lot more in the next year in this. And also these are things that I'm actually personally interested. I think that will be very transformative to the healthcare in there. So the one thing I do want to apologize, we had like 2 really exciting speakers. We had the Walmart VP Marcus in there. He was really excited to come speak with us. But unfortunately, he's actually traveling with the Walmart CEO because Walmart is making a really big bet on healthcare. See all the news in there. Then the second one is Comcast Summit. So again, we're really excited working with Comcast. They have some really interesting thoughts on healthcare from the consumer perspective, right? How to take 50 million American homes, use that as an anchor piece to getting healthcare. So you probably know what we do is we do a lot of business development for our partners in there. So if you need access to those people, we talk with them fairly frequently. Definitely talk to us. As long as you can become part of the VSee platform, whether use our platform or our physician network. We would love to do joint selling, just combine with our conversation with them, wrap around, so everybody we can make money together. Again, thank you so much for coming to our last day. Really, really appreciative you guys sticking around, and hope you guys will get a lot of interesting insight on us.